Hey, all, Michael J. with Operation Military Family and the host of the Military Wire podcast. And now this whole Vision 2020 series that we're doing online in the month of April. And I am so excited about today's guest. This is Jen Anthony. I will tell you that Jen and I came across each other. She was on my podcast months back. So very, very real. And I got to tell you guys a little bit about Jen. She's a managing director for a healthcare company. She's an executive coach. She went to the George W. Bush leadership. She was a scholar there. She retired as a chief master sergeant, which was so hard for me to wrap my brain around because I'm a Navy guy. She's Air Force, and their wording's backwards from ours. But essentially what that means for all of you who are not military is she essentially became part of the 1% club in the enlisted ranks. Just pretty impressive. But what impressed me most was Jen's story of when she went through transition. And that's why we wanted to have her on, because I think everybody today is going through some form of transition. And I really want to break that down as far as how Jen got her mind right and is still working every day to get her mind right, as I think we all are, and how she kind of planned through it and how she continues to plan through this. And things that we can all do to help us execute moving forward so we don't get stuck in this funk. So Jen, welcome to the Vision 2020 Today series. Great to have you.
Mike, thank you so much for carving off some time and some space for us to connect. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, no, this is so exciting. So I want to put it out to those who have joined. I've got a question for you guys who have joined, because Jen and I are going to break this down, but I want to pose a question to you all. And I want you guys to go ahead and throw these in the comment box, in the participant box, etc. But what are you all doing to get your mind right through this? It's a pretty important question, because we talk about the things that, the government's doing right now to keep our bodies safe, but then, mind and spirit is so important. And I really want to get a flavor for what people are doing now to get their mind right. So I'm throwing that out to the audience. But Jen, let's talk a little bit about your story, because it's so compelling. You joined the Air Force. And I'm just going to put it out there because I think, the stigma is still out there is when people thank people for their service, they oftentimes overlook females in the service, right? Which is unfortunate, but it happens. But you joined the Air Force and you advanced. Tell us a little bit about your story. What was that all about?
I think pertinent to this conversation, Mike, is that what I see in my story is constant transition, right? Constant transition. Grew up in a small town in South Mississippi. People laugh when I tell them that I lived in a trailer park, but that is a true story. No one in my immediate family graduated high school. So after 2 years of college, being broke and tired and listening to a little voice that was there that continued to whisper, there's something bigger, there's something bigger. I joined the Air Force on a whim. My dad was a Army veteran. I lost him very young in my life. I decided to join the Air Force. I went in one day, Mike. The recruiter said, "So do you want to talk about it?" And I said, "No, I'm ready to go." And 22 days later, I was on my first time I've been on an airplane to basic training.
No kidding.
And so I will tell you all along the way, there were folks looking out for me, right? I joined the Air Force as a computer operator, which is kind of funny because I'm from Mississippi and had never touched a computer in my life at that point. But just like the recruiter said, the Air Force taught me everything I needed to know to do that job and do it well. When I landed in the military, what I found was traits and a community that I'd valued all along. So camaraderie, doing something bigger than yourself, an important mission, being part of a team, and I thrived there. So early in my career, Mike, I was stationed, I think this is important to talk about, I was stationed at Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi for Hurricane Katrina. I was an instructor at the time, lost everything. My home, everything in it, my vehicles, gone. I had an opportunity to do lots of cool stuff in the Air Force. I spent 4 years as a first sergeant. So for anyone who's not familiar with what a first sergeant is, because certainly we don't have a civilian translation of that, that is all things good and bad regarding the personal welfare of folks who are assigned to a specific mission. So I was assigned to a unit, but my job there was to take care of the people, pay, promotion, death, bad behavior, right? I tell people I was a coach. I was a mentor. I was a jail warden, right? All of those. And I spent 4 years doing that. And so, Mike, that really exposed me to the ups and downs that every single person has in life, whether you can see those on the surface or not. I worked hard, Mike. I climbed my way up, up to the top. When I was promoted to chief, they pulled me back into cyberspace operations, which is kind of where I started. My last assignment was as the director of workforce management. So I took care of about 11,000 airmen across the globe. But so there was there's a cross section of what was happening in my personal life and what was happening in the Air Force. And I made a decision at that point in time that it was time, 20 years and 9 days, it was time for me to transition. And Mike, I'll tell you, I prepared for transition. I did all the things that they tell you to do, went to all the classes, did all the workshops, had lots of help with my resume. And for all intents and purposes, people said this to me, like, you are the textbook example of how people should transition. And so I went from combat boots and camos to a suit in an executive boardroom with 6 days in between. And on the surface, people will say, and people congratulated me, like, you had a great transition. What people did not see, and you know this, right? When someone reads your bio, they don't see all of the heartache and the struggle and the sacrifice and the failure that's there. Yeah. And so, I found myself, like any good chief would do, I got into that corporate America job, assessed what's wrong, came up with priorities, put the right team in place. And about the 6-month point, Mike, we were rocking and rolling, like things are super stable.
Yeah.
And that's where I begin to feel like, hey, something's not right here. I don't feel well. And so there were bouts of incredible sadness, incredible grief. And Mike, at that point in time, I couldn't put my finger on why it was happening.
You know there's so much to unpack here, Jen, that I think is so important is you named a few things. Number one, you excelled, which it creates a certain mindset to go ahead and stay focused and excel. And you had a pathway, right? I mean, the military is really good at assigning mission, purpose, identity, right? So if you want to take that trajectory, you can do it if you lock into it and go for it. And then being told that you did everything right in transition, that you're the model student of how one should transition. And so you transition, you have a short period of time, you get into a job, and yet you still don't feel satisfied. You feel empty. There's a hole in your soul. And why I think this is so important for people right now is I think there's a number of people out there right now, Jen, who are struggling going, man, I did everything right. I did everything right. And yet my world is blown up. Like how do I get out of this blown up stage? How do I get through this? And so Jen, talk to us a little bit about, you felt that hole in your soul, 6 months, something's not right. What did you do?
So what I will say to you is, I think hindsight is a beautiful gift, Mike. And so I'm speaking to you obviously from that state. I also think it's important for people to know that as I was going through this really hard time, I couldn't put a finger on what was happening, right? I couldn't understand what was happening. My drug of choice, Mike, is achievement. So yeah. What I found is that there were a lot of things, pain, trauma, tough stuff, that because I'm full of grit and not give up, and I will put my nose down and you just get it done. And by the way, I spent 20 years in the military with them reinforcing that way of thinking. Right. I'm not weak. You won't beat me. When life began to get more quiet,
yeah,
and I wasn't running 1,000 miles an hour, And those feelings overcame me. It's the same principle that walked me through getting back up when I got knocked down. There was this sense that I don't know what's wrong with me, but by gosh, I'm about to figure it out, and I'll do whatever it is I need to do to figure out what's going on. And Mike, I don't want to push this on everyone, but for me, I kind of categorize my life into 4 pillars of wellness: mental, physical, spiritual, and social, right? And
Yeah.
so that's the way I decided to approach it, right? Let me tackle these. For me, it was my mental well-being. And so at that point in my life, I decided to reach out, and with the encouragement of people that I love and trust, to reach out to a mental health professional to walk me through what was happening.
Yeah.
In January, I started a pretty intensive treatment. It's called cognitive processing therapy. It's a 12-week program. And Mike, I'm telling you today, it changed my life.
Is that right? Is
Yeah.
that right? Yeah. And I think that's important for people to hear. There was a question that came up, and Shelley asked this question. It's such a great question too. She said, would you have taken a break between the point of you getting out and getting into the civilian sector? And before you answer that, I want to talk about what I love about you, Jen, is you being open to seeking a battle buddy through your experience. I mean, that's really what we're talking about is I think sometimes there's this, I can't talk to a counselor. I can't go seek help. I can't, and I've been around people who always said, hey, Mike, if there's people who have something that you want, that you desire, we're not talking material wealth. We're talking things that are important, like, the perfect relationship, or, the marriage, or friendship, or how they address situations or problems, things like that. Talk to those people, get around them. And I love, Jen, that you are committed to your own personal growth. And that's what you're saying is, I had to put my ego aside. And by doing that, I had to go seek help, and it's changed my life. And I think there's so many people right now that need to do that, right? Because we're seeing, I was talking to one of my board members, and we're talking just about different investments. And he goes, one of the things I missed was the companies that develop antidepressants. Those are going through the roof. Yeah. And I talked to a doctor friend of mine, and he said, oh my gosh, I got to tell you that I think our prescriptions for antidepressants are up 300%. And that is hard because people are self-medicating when in fact what they need to do is dig deep, right? And you were committed to digging deep. So Jen, is your solution to, I'm not going to say the solution, a solution, really seeking mentorship, and in some cases maybe, therapy or a coach or somebody along that line?
Yeah. We know this, we hear this all the time. Like, you are the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, right?
Yeah.
We've talked about this a little bit, Mike, right? So I feel like my life is a series of divine interventions. I applied to the Bush Institute because my work life was getting less busy, right? Remember, my drug of choice is achievement. I was looking for the next thing to do. I applied to the Bush Institute because I wanted something else to fill that loud, noisy space. And what I will tell you is, when you are sitting in a room, I just incredibly blessed to know the 42 people that were in that class with me. Heroes. Mike, do you hear me? When I was sitting in that room with super tough, strong people, and they were able to tell me, hey, Jen, I went and got some help. And when you hear it from people that you respect and admire and look up to, it gave me permission to do that for myself.
Oh, that is so cool. And I know for some of you that are, that have joined us live, and you'll see this on the playbook, you probably hear my dog in the background. Welcome to the home life, right? Crazy stuff goes on. So I want you guys to know that life is different, right? I mean, it's so different. And Jen, when you're talking about your drug of choice was achievement, was staying really on mission, on purpose, on filling the day with achievement, things to do. That's been stripped from a lot of people. I don't know the full numbers. So what do you do in the quiet? I mean, the quiet can either be a very good place or it can be a very bad place.
So
So
like
what do you do?
when this first when COVID first started, I actually shared a little video about how grateful I was that the universe stopped, cleared everyone's calendar. It stopped your meetings. It stopped your busy. You're not running and going. Everyone has the opportunity to have some quiet and stillness and peace. Now, I want to say this right quick, Mike. I acknowledge wholly how much heartache and suffering that's happening right now. So I don't want to detract from that. But what I will say is that, Mike, my grandma was a little tiny woman out of New Orleans, Louisiana, Cajun, fiery, right? And she used to say to me all the time, every day you wake up, you have a choice. And there are two options. You're part of the problem or you are part of the solution. I try to apply that to today, right? When I wake up in the morning, I get a choice about how I'm going to feel that day. Mike, it's been a lot of days now, right? I don't know about you, but we're in week 3 of being at home. I'm a single mom. I have 2 kids. We're doing online school. I work in healthcare. That's a really heavy burden. I would love to tell you that every single day has been like super awesome.
Right.
That is not true, right? Some days like I'm cleaning my baseboards, and some days like I have a cocktail staring out the window, wondering like, what am I doing with my life? So let me be like real and set that tone. However, I want to give folks like tangible things that I'm doing that are helpful to me. Here's the first thing, and Mike, I've practiced this for a long time in my life, and it is the practice of gratitude.
Love that.
Folks can do this in a number of ways, right? You can use a gratitude journal, write down each day 3 things that you're grateful for the day. In my house, we have a gratitude jar, so you can walk by the gratitude jar whenever you want, write a note and throw it in there. I also try to make a habit of having a conversation at the end of the day. What are you grateful for today? Because I think even in the midst of really, really difficult times, we can find something to be grateful for. The other thing I do, Mike, and I am deliberate about this, is I have created a list of 6 things that I know will help me when I'm not having a good day. Those 6 things are written. Listen, in your house, you can write with a dry erase marker on any window or any mirror in your house. Those 6 things, Mike, are written down. I have a huge mirror in my room. They are written there so that when I wake and I find myself about to have a bad day, and maybe I don't have the strength to be super productive today and study the course that I'm taking at Harvard right now. Maybe all I can do for the day is take a bubble bath. Then guess what? I know clearly what those 6 things are. It's outdoor exercise. It's yoga. It's a wonderful cup of coffee. It's to cook a meal. It's to hang out with my super cute 14-pound Frenchie, or it's to take a guilt-free bath. If there are moms on this call, right? I'm not saying just take a bath. Like, you have to clear everything else away, and you got to be able to get in the bathtub without worrying about the laundry or the kids, or right? It's got to be a guilt-free bath. So that is what I'm leaning on right now, Mike.
Man, it is so good. I know, there's questions that are pouring in, and I don't know if we'll get to all of them, but I love some of the things that people are saying. I mean, one was, now that it's okay not to be okay, right? What are you doing to help people understand that? And I think that's important. I mean, how do you give yourself permission to not be okay and not fall into a pity party?
For me, Mike, it is because I'm practical and I'm task oriented. For me, it is a timeline. I get 24 hours. If at hour 25, I'm not I'm not rebounding. It's a phone call to somebody in my tribe.
Yeah.
And Mike, here's something I think super important. So sometimes I'm the receiver of that call, right?
Yeah.
I think in this time, like there's a lot of advice all over the place.
Yeah.
Right? Like you should be productive and you can learn a new language and read a book. Like here's my opinion. Sometimes people just need to hear that it's okay for them to be where they are. We are all in the same storm, Mike, but we're not in the same boat.
Yeah.
So everyone's circumstance is different. And so sometimes just being validated and being heard, like that's what you need to kind of dust yourself off and say, okay, right, today I'm going to survive. I'm going to put one foot in front of the other today. And people need to be okay with feeling the way they feel.
Yeah, I think that's so good, man. There's, Kevin wrote and he said he was having a drink with a friend, a couple months back, and just talking about seeking counseling, right? And doing the work to put himself in a better place. And I think that's so important too, is if you recognize that you're not in a great place, mentally, is to seek that help. If it's just a phone call. Jen, I love that you did a buddy check on me. I thought that was the coolest thing ever, right? I typically will do that to people that, I'm around. And I just thought it was so cool, it was so thoughtful that you reached out and said, hey, just doing a buddy check, right? And I think if we do more of that, everybody has people in their lives. I pray that they have somebody in their life anyway, that they can do that with. And if not, then it's important to find that tribe, right? And really be cautious as far as what you put into your mind. I mean, there's some great experts out there, Dr. Caroline Leaf and many others. We've got we've got our neuroscientists on our board, and we just talk about, it's like ingredients, right? You put bad ingredients in something, you're going to get a bad result, right? And we've all heard this, the garbage in, garbage out thing, but I think that's even more important now, right? So if you were to give people one or two things like, okay, this is how Jen starts her day, this is what really sets my day off to a good start, what are those one or two things for you?
Before COVID, for me, it was a physical workout. So before this pandemic, I was up at 4:30. I was at the gym at 5. And that was where I found my...
I just want to say you're crazy. Just for the record, you're crazy. But that's okay. Keep going. Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you, Mike. Here's what I will tell you. Today, that is certainly not happening. I sleep until 6:45. I start my workday at 7 a.m. Many times in my life, Mike, I can recall longing for peace, stillness, quiet. I build that in my day now. So that actually is how I start my day. And so I'm fortunate in that I have a quiet space. I am a coffee connoisseur. Like, I think coffee is life. I have lots of fancy coffee tools. And so I make myself a really great cup of coffee, Mike, and sit quietly and reflect. This world is noisy. So if you move immediately to news, to work, to social media, to people in your space, then I think you rob yourself of the opportunity to hear your own voice.
Yeah. And
that voice is not going to lead you in the wrong direction.
Yeah, that is so good. That's, I do, before I get out of bed, people say, okay, what do you do? What is the first thing you do? Because for me, it really is, take every thought captive, right? I mean, it's so important that we do that. I believe, because our thinking is where everything starts, right? And when I wake up, I just sit there and just lie there for a moment and just say, thank you. And I don't even know what I'm saying thank you for yet, right? But it goes along your gratitude piece. But it forces my mind into this way of thinking, okay, what am I truly thankful for?
Yeah.
Right. And if we can frame the day that way, because we know this situation is going to throw a lot at us. Jen, I got to say, you've got some people on here that are big fans of Jen Anthony, which means that you have done some amazing stuff as far as leading people. And I want to give people an opportunity to be in relationship with you. So how do people reach out to you, Jen? Just to kind of follow you, to see what you're doing, to see the great things, because you put some great stuff out there. And I think it's really important that people see that. What are ways that people can follow you?
So LinkedIn, obviously is there. If you're on today, if you're listening to this, I'm not an open networker on LinkedIn. So, but I would love to connect with you if you're here. So shoot me a note, tell me that you were here today, and I will connect with you there. Facebook is also a great way to connect with me too, Mike. I am growing more comfortable sharing my journey, right? Like this is a journey.
Yeah.
I'm fighting to be a better woman tomorrow than I was yesterday.
Yeah.
And so I am beginning to share excerpts of my journey just in hopes that it will motivate someone, Mike, or like if they're having, I mean, I got to where I was because people reached out and helped me. And so the greatest way I honor those people is to do the same thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You're talking about paying it forward. And,
Yeah.
you know, we pay it forward in almost everything we do, right? We're either paying forward a positive thought, or we're paying forward a negative thought, or we're paying forward a positive action, or we're paying forward a negative action. We're always paying it forward. I think the choice, and again, Jen, what I love about you is you make choices every day. We all do, but you have chosen to say, listen, I'm going to commit to growth. I'm going to commit to being better. I'm going to commit to working on me, not trying to help others see my point of view, but just work on me. And if you want to be in relationship and come alongside, we can grow together. And that is a beautiful testament to your life. And it's no question and no wonder why you achieved what you did in the military. And the lives that you impacted there and the lives that you're impacting today is because you've got this selfless leader attitude. And I think for everybody on the call, everybody that's joined in on the webinar, I think it's so important to remember that we all have the ability to influence people in our lives. And we have to make that cognitive choice of how are we going to influence them? Is it going to be positive or negative? And I know we're boiling it down to something pretty simple, but at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to is, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we could give you I've written a couple books. Sure, you can read my books, but guess what? At the end of the day, it's all about, you got to have an action plan for your life. You got to have a support network. And really, if your vision for your life is so big, sometimes the circumstances don't matter as much, right?
Yeah,
They still matter, but they don't matter as much. And
yeah.
Jen, parting thoughts, what would you come across somebody on the street, man, I love the comments that are coming in. You come across somebody on the street. What is one thing that you think people could do to just brighten other people's spirit?
I think right now people need a reminder, Mike, that growth and comfort don't ride the same horse.
Oh, wow. That's good.
What is happening? I believe this. What's happening right now is hard for everybody. But if people can find faith, however that comes to them, maybe that's in a buddy check, maybe that's in a smile, maybe that's you delivering a meal via Uber to a single mom who needs it today because she doesn't want to cook, or maybe it's to check on an elderly neighbor. However people do that, what we are going through right now is not going to last forever. And I know this, Mike. Like, I know it with my soul.
Yeah.
This is where seeds of better things are planted right now. Like, there's better stuff on the other side of this. And so just encouraging people to remember that in their darkest hour, on their darkest day, that There's a brighter light ahead of you. Just keep the faith.
I love it. That's a great way to end. And I love that quote too. And I don't know if that's a Jen Anthony quote or not, but I'm going to attribute it to you. But growth and comfort don't ride the same horse. Man, I love that. If that's a Jen Anthony saying, I'm putting that one up, giving you credit for that. I just want to thank everybody for joining the call. We're going to stop the recording. Jen and I are probably going to stay on for just a few more minutes. And if you guys want to, if you want to listen to the behind the scenes, it's perfectly fine. But Jen, again, thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Mike, thank you. It was really, really, really good to spend some time with you today.